Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced with another video for Ask a Libertarian, a really awesome Facebook page, which you should like. Now, on this video, I got asked, what's the number one problem in America? And to me, just the number one problem everywhere is the burden of government. And what do I mean by that? It's the burden of government and its effect on the cost of living. Because that's why people are struggling. And the problem is, as more and more people struggle, as life gets more and more expensive, whether it's housing getting more expensive because of our housing lending policies, or college getting expensive because of our school lending policies, or healthcare getting more expensive because of our healthcare policies, what happens is that you get to keep less and less of your paycheck. And as taxes go to pay for those policies that are driving up costs, even less of your paycheck gets kept. So basically, you're keeping less and less of your paycheck because of the cost of living, because of taxation, and all these other regulations and their effect on the cost of everything else, that people struggle. And then they ask for more help. They need more help from government. The problem is, it becomes this never-ending cycle, because then government spends more money, government taxes more, and now more people can't survive because, people who are on that line, that person who's marginally getting by, that little extra bit of taxes puts them now to the point where they aren't getting by. And it's not just taxes, it's also increased cost of living. Again, healthcare, housing, education, energy, whatever. So the burden of government shows up in the prices of the goods that we buy, everything that we buy. Our trade policies and all these tariffs and quotas and the effect on all sorts of goods that we buy, the regulations on several different industries and the cost that we have to pay there, and all that stuff adds up and keeps eating more and more of your paycheck, which means you have to work more and more hours and spend less time with your family, which means that there's a scarcity of demand for work, because if you're working an extra 4 hours, that's 4 hours that somebody else can't work, and again, less time with your kids. It just becomes this big mess. People don't see the creep that it takes on your individual life, because no one individual policy takes that much by itself. But all these different policies, all these different regulations, these taxes, in aggregate, they take so much that it puts you at a real disadvantage. Okay, like a good example is like our policy here in New York City. An interesting policy here in New York City that I wasn't aware about until recently is that we really made like a legal commitment to make sure that anybody who's homeless has a bed. So then what happens is you end up building shelters. But it's hard to build a new shelter because a lot of neighborhoods don't want to shelter in their neighborhood. So then what happens is you end up building a bunch of shelters in the not nicest neighborhoods, which just makes those neighborhoods sometimes worse off. And then what happens, though, when you can't build new shelters and you can't keep up with the demand for the housing, then what happens is the city commits to providing people with apartments and hotel rooms. So basically, hotels in the city, there's several hotels in the city that don't actually have vacancies for like people who want to visit the city. They're filled with, homeless families, etc. Problem is, this creates a scarcity of hotel rooms, so hotel rooms are super expensive. This creates a scarcity of apartments on top of, like rent control and zoning laws that already push up the price of housing and create housing scarcity, which pushes up the rent for everybody else. So then you have more homeless families because they can't keep up with the rising rents. So then the city is having to spend more to house the next crop of families that aren't surviving because housing prices continue to go up. And this just becomes a never-ending cycle. And on top of it, the city's getting less revenue because those apartments that house these families, those hotels that house these families, they get exemptions from the property tax. And so this becomes, it basically eats away at the city from both ends, and increased costs and decreased revenue. And it's just a bad way of doing things. Theoretically, if you didn't have this policy, a lot of those families might be able to actually afford a place to live because housing would cost less because there'd be more available inventory. If you reform zoning laws, if a lot of these policies that restrict supply could then make, housing more available. But this is just an example of the nature of the thing that I'm talking about in the sense that how bad policies increase the cost of living, and that's what's driving everything, because it's that rising cost of living that's driving the struggle that everyone's frustrated about. But all they see is the cost. They don't understand how these costs happen. So they just think that everybody else is just gouging them, and then it's up to government to help them out. And this is a situation we're in, and we need to get people to see where those costs come from, or else it'll never change. But that's my thoughts. My name is Alex Merced from alexmerced.com. And this is a video for Ask a Libertarian. Have a great day. Make sure you like the page, and have a great day.